ASEAN Dailies. First and the foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Good morning, this is Arlene.
Hi, welcome back, this is Grace.
And of course, you are with us on our daily morning news. And at ASEAN Daily, we bring you the critical commentary on Southeast Asian news. To start off, we give you a daily update on the IMDb crisis. So, apparently, according to the Attorney General, none of the accounts frozen are held by the Prime Ministers.
And then there were 6 bank accounts, and none of them were, like you mentioned, it was not by Prime Minister Datuk Seri Najib Tun Razak. But this is very controversial. It's been going on for the past few days already, and then he's in the denial, or we really don't know what's really the truth, or what's the scenes behind what has been going on.
Well, there's a huge question mark, definitely. For the government civil servant, they actually set up a task force. One of the member of the task force is Tan Sri Abdul Ghani Patil. In a statement yesterday, he said that he was concerned with the leaked document pertaining the ongoing probe and called for a full investigation in that matter. He also stressed that the whole purpose of setting up an interagency special task force is to investigate the matter and to ensure that there could be no abuse of investigation mechanism. So perhaps the main investigation will be done by the MACC, but the task force is to assist MACC to ensure that there is some level of credibility to the investigation against allegation of corruption by the Prime Minister.
And at the same time, it was mentioned that they will not hesitate to prosecute any person found to have leaked this confidential investigation-related information. It is a criminal offence under Sedition 133 of the Financial Services Act 2013, and also Section 145 of the Islamic Financial Services Act 2013. But then the question here is, it is very a big, huge issue, as in coming from the national image also. But apparently this issue is so well prevented to be even to announced outside of Malaysia. So when you go to perhaps the Northeast North Asia side, not many people are aware of this. That means the government really blocked all this information being leaked to outside of our country.
Oh, that's pretty scary, because in a way you want people to know information, but then I understand from the government side the information has not yet been verified, so it's a huge accusation by the Wall Street Journal as well as the Sarawak report. But one thing is clear, that if the government is really serious in this matter, I think using the law would be one of the most important channel. A lot of people are demanding answers from him. Of course, his lawyer has issued a statement saying that he will look seriously into the matter of the allegation. Opposition member of parliament as well as NGO have been calling really hard for either his resignation or his appeal to the court on this issue. So when it comes to my personal view on this, it's really hard to give a definite answer, but I do feel that this issue will impact not just Malaysian politics but Malaysian economy as well. Our ringgit has already been very, very weak, and not just our currency value, but also in terms of the investment climate in this country. It will affect tremendously.
Yes.
So, besides 1MDB, another issue that is crippling Southeast Asia is definitely what is happening right now in Thailand. Apparently, the Thai students, 14 Thai students which were detained for an anti-coup protest, were released from jail, but they are still liable to face sedition charges.
Yes, that is correct. And then this is the update news from a reporter just a couple of days ago. And then these 14 students who detained for the anti-coup protest, they released, which was just yesterday. But then, like you mentioned, Arlene, they were under sedition charges. And then they are perhaps in their university students in their 20s, and there is only one woman, so she was sent to the female jails in Thailand. And then there were a few had dared to challenge the ruling military web of restrictions, including a ban on political gatherings as well.
Don't you see a trend here that is happening? The younger generation of Southeast Asian, I think they are really eager to voice out their concern, and I don't think they can live with the kind of regimes we have in Southeast Asia. You see that in Myanmar, where students were protesting against the education law, and then you see this in Thailand, and of course in Singapore with the 16-year-old blogger / YouTuber, and in Malaysia we have several cases of student leaders protesting against the government for various issues. But this trend, I think, is something positive in a way. We know that the younger generation are not just another robots to be controlled by the government of the day.
And hopefully not. And at the same time, last week, the European Union and the United Nations Human Rights Office, they also called on the Thai authorities to free these activists from custody and drop all those charges. But I don't know how the Thai Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha is reacting towards this, because he was very proactive and quite progressive when it came to the 2014 May coup and the takeover, and then it was pretty vital with all those violent protests against the elected government. There are tensions between the government and the public.
Huge tension here, especially with the younger generation in Thailand. But positive news is coming up from Myanmar. So this is it. This is it. When it comes to the date, it has been fixed. This is for the election date for Myanmar. It's going to be fixed at November 8 this year. I'm really excited about it. This is the first time Myanmar will have their election after a few decades ago.
Exactly, and that will be their historical mark in their nation history. And the reform has been underway since 2010, and when military rule was replaced by military-backed civilian government. But then the one concern from here is whenever there is a transition from military to democratic or the other way around, there is always a sort of movement from citizens, and that's always the worrisome, because it could be very violent, or it's also because of the shift from the government system, and then the people have to adapt to the new sort of system and also be able to apply on the daily lives. And there will be a lot of expectation, especially from a military to a democratic system, because we are also heading to achieve the ASEAN, and Myanmar is one of them. And regardless of all those human rights issues and economical issues, this election is one of the historical mark that we can remember.
Yes, definitely we will keep closely tap into it. Just a bit of a background on Myanmar's transition towards democracy. Reform has been underway since 2010, and the military rule was replaced by a military-backed civilian government as of today. The ruling USDP will be for the first time go head-to-head with Aung San Suu Kyi's National League for Democracy since 1990. That was like 25 years ago.
Yeah.
I can't believe it. And a president will be chosen by the parliament. But unfortunately, under the current constitution, Aung San Suu Kyi is barred from taking the presidential, the role of a president if she were to win the election, because her late husband was a British and her two sons are British citizens. So in a way, there's 2 weeks ago, Parliamentarians voted down a motion to amend the clause. They also voted to keep the army's veto over constitutional change, dealing a blow to hopes for fuller democracy. Nevertheless, Aung San Suu Kyi is campaigning door to door this week in Yangon and has hinted that she will stand nevertheless. On a similar news, in Myanmar, ethnic loyalties could crimp Aung San Suu Kyi's party. So she has another obstacles that she needs to face, which is to please the hearts of minority groups.
And that's one of the other. She just climbed a mountain, and then there's another mountain ahead of her head. She is looking to become a dominant force in the parliament for sure in the coming November elections, and that will be taking over the reign of this military initiative reform process and what is now seen as stalled. And in fact, the country does not have any opinion polls, but analysts widely believe that they will prevail over the ruling and also pro-military Union Solidarity or Civilian Party of President Thein Sein in the country's heartland, home to majority Burma ethnic group. So what's happening here is that according to one of the campaigners, he said if ethnic parties were to win many seats in the parliament, that will significantly increase their bargaining power. So towards the expectation is there, and then the election is coming up. So all those politicians are on the move to help out, and also to perhaps the like all those minority ethnic group will need some kind of help. So as well.
This is pretty interesting. I'm actually looking forward to it because some of the minority parties that Aung San Suu Kyi need to, I would say, court with. One of it is called White Tiger Party. It's dominated by the Shan nationalities, the Shan ethnic minorities. And they make up 10% of the population, so it's pretty significant for Aung San Suu Kyi to be closer to them. And in another way, there are 21 ethnic parties that has been formed, and those win seats will likely agree on the presidential candidates. And this is good for Aung San Suu Kyi, but he needs to win the hearts and minds of the ethnic minority. Anyway, we will take one short break. When we return, we will discuss more on the news regarding Southeast Asia.
ASEAN Dailies. First and the foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning, this is Grace.
And we are back with us again on ASEAN Daily. So continuing our politics discussion, this is regarding on Myanmar registered record number of trafficked children victims in last month.
And then apparently the police revealed that all of the victims but one who was sold as a bride to a neighboring country could be rescued. And also at the same time, the authorities claimed that it rescued 12 out of the 17 victims in June in the connection with the 10 human trafficking cases, in the majority of that being women.
Human trafficking is definitely a very worrisome issue in Southeast Asia. Earlier on we had the boat people issue, trafficking of refugees and migrants, and now children. It's getting worse and worse.
And then it looks like it's endless issues that we are having here in Southeast Asia. And then like we mentioned before, according to the police figures, a total of 113 traffickers were arrested in connection with the 66 trafficking cases in the first half of this year, mostly occurring in certain districts in Myanmar.
And besides trafficking, another issue that is plaguing Southeast Asia is piracy. So piracy in the Malacca Straits, can ASEAN really respond to it? Because according to a recent report from the International Chamber of Commerce and International Maritime Bureau, Southeast Asia accounts for, guess what, 55% of the world's 54 piracy and armed robbery incidents since 2015. The start. I can't believe it. It's so funny when we think about piracy. The pop culture would usually depict Somalian pirates, but in reality, most of the pirates are most probably Southeast Asian.
Yeah, and that's pretty quite scary.
It's really scary.
Yeah, and of this number, 21 were the cases of suspected piracy, and 22 were attempted piracies, and 13 were confirmed piracies. And apparently, Indonesia has the highest number of these attacks, and accounting for almost 40% of attacks in 2015. And also the other country, which is Vietnam, that also has seen an increase in armed robbery incidents, with the thieves breaking into ships and anchor. And those are the pretty much violent attacks by the pirates in the certain seas.
Well, the question is, why ASEAN is so passive? It's not that ASEAN didn't do anything. One of the ASEAN ministerial meetings, they do address piracy in their discussion, but I guess it's too slow and it's not as effective as people would want it to be.
Perhaps you have the good points there. I mean, ASEAN they do concern about all the issues around it, but at the same time, perhaps the planning was not executed properly, and at the same time, the plan is there, but the progress is a bit slow. That all those attacks are still on the way, and the plans are still not taking place.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll take one short break. When we return, we will talk about economic issue in Southeast Asia.
ASEAN Dailies. First and foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hey, this is Arlene.
Hi, welcome back. This is Grace.
And of course, you're still with us on our ASEAN Daily. So, talking about economy, the economy is not really doing well across Southeast Asia. And it's not just across Southeast Asia, but also in the tech industry.
Right.
Apparently, Microsoft will be cutting not just 1,000, not 2,000, but 7,800 jobs because they are reorganizing their phone unit.
And apparently it will be around that number of jobs, and also to write down the value of the struggling mobile phone division acquired last year from Nokia by some $7.6 billion US, and that is pretty fresh evidence of its woes in the global smartphone market. And that represents the announcement of the 7,800 jobs losing, represent the second major round of these layoffs in the year for the U.S. tech giant, which have got some 18,000 jobs a year ago as part of this effort to integrate the Finnish-based phone group.
So, last 2 years ago, Microsoft announced that they want to buy Nokia for $7.2 billion US. And of course, they closed the deal last year, noting some adjustment would push the cost slightly higher. But they had failed to get much traction in their Windows phone platform, even with the acquisition of Nokia. In fact, a survey by IDC said Windows was expected to capture just, unfortunately, 3.2% of the global smartphone market this year, which is not good enough considering you have cheaper phones by Chinese-made mobile phones. So there's a huge competition out there.
And at the same time, all those individuals who will be very, very affected, after this loss of their jobs, because apparently Microsoft had about 180,000 employers worldwide at the end of the March, and with about half in the United States. And it plans to start rolling out this Windows 10 in late July, introducing a new operating system, which also can be used to power not only personal computers but a range of mobile devices.
I want to ask you, Grace, do you prefer to use Apple or Windows or the the Android version, which is powered under Google, right?
Yeah. To be honest, I've been using Apple for years already, so I'm pretty used to these applications as well as operation system. And so far, if I were to compare Microsoft or Windows to the Apple's, I will still prefer to use Apple's because there is a less viral infection and than the other computers. So that's worrisome when it comes to downloading apps and using a lot of softwares.
For me, I'm so used to using the Google platform. It's also because of familiarity. You're so familiar with that particular platform. It's hard for you to change the window, and window looks too colorful. It's like a kid's mural. Anyway, apart from that, another issue that is definitely setting trouble is the Philippine budget. Aquino plans record Philippine budget, but the problem is spending it. Philippine President Benigno Aquino is preparing to bequeath his successor with a record $66 billion budget. Wow. That is much more higher than our Malaysian budget.
Exactly. And then this is going on while some governments struggle with the insufficient revenue. If you can look at the Greece, in the Philippines, the challenge is actually implementing the spending that has been approved and also funded. And this is very interesting because it has the record of this huge amount of budget for 2016. However, how are they going to utilize this fund is another question and the story here. And having this bureaucratic bottlenecks and the fear of the being caught in the anti-corruption drive, this have contributed to the Aquino administration's missing spending targets every year since 2011.
So they spend it, but they don't really achieve their target. It's just kind of a kind of bummer. And pursuit of tax evaders and corrupt officials has also given Aquino the headache because more revenues to fund roads and schools and boost cash handouts to the poor while curbing debt efforts that led to investment grade rating and economic growth exceeding 6% since 2012. And the next president should protect anti-corruption drive and sustain higher investment in infrastructure. This is according to a Bloomberg poll in June.
That's correct. So, that's the economical news of the Philippines, and in fact that like you mentioned before, the person of all the tax evaders and the corrupt officers has given Aquino more revenue to fund roads and schools and also to boost cash handouts to the poor. But then the anti-corruption and all the other issues are still there. So perhaps the money should spend to come up with a solution, also to protect all these issues that's going around politically and also economically.
So corruption is always the case to address. And another worrying fact is the financial crisis that is happening in China. A lot of people might not realize there's a huge crisis that are happening in China. Their market is not doing that well, especially stock market, and they're probably not doing even better than Greece.
Well, that's what it was reported. At the same time, other articles have been released regarding the China economic growth. Apparently, the economic rate is dropping, and it's very noticeable, and not only Indonesia, but then from the outside perspective. Because while the Greece is having a lot of problems financially, and that's catching a lot of attention, but on the other side of the world, China is also facing its own financial crisis, and this is very worrisome because China is one of the gigantic countries around the world, and this could be the sort of lead to dramatic series of the government intervention to stem the panic and unsuccessful, and also all sorts of the worrisome, including lots of perhaps there will be an agenda behind it. We never know what's going on.
But one thing that we definitely know is there's a 30% fall in the Chinese stock market, and there could be a Chinese stock market bubble, people putting too much hope in the Chinese market that at the end of the day it will all fall apart, and that's the scary part by equating Chinese stock market to the Wall Street crash in 1929, which of course was the reason of the Great Depression that happened at that era. On the other hand, we will bring you news on the social arts and culture. So, Singapore, Taiwan, Brunei is a combined farm is set for this year.
And that the United Agri-Fishers Market ASEAN Daily has released about 25.3 hectares of land in Tanah Jambu Agriculture Development Area from the Department of Agriculture, and also has plans of 22,000 square meters of these greenhouses in the first of 3 phases of government.
Do you know what is jambu?
All about jambu.
Jambu is guava in the Malay language. Do you love guava?
Yes, I love guava.
What kind of guava?
Is there more than one guava?
Yeah, actually there's more types of guava. I love guava, and a lot of people, when they talk about local fruits, they only think about watermelon, durians, rambutan, but they forgot like one local fruits that is popular in the streets of Southeast Asia is guava. You have it in rojak, you have it on its own, and yeah, I love it.
And hopefully we can also be able to export this this fruit outside of the country as well. And having this Singapore, Taiwan, and Brunei farm of starting from this year will bring a lot of attractions as well.
Yeah, and West Malaysia, we should be cultivating more guavas, more healthier lifestyle as well. On the other hand, the Borussia Dortmund arrived in Singapore for Asian tour.
And that this is the sort of the last time the German Bundesliga side visited the region was 8 years ago. So this is sort of the highlighting news after long time. And in fact, a lot of people were surrounding this visit, and less than 24 hours after their 6-0 demolition of J-League side, Kawasaki Frontale in Japan, and then Borussia Dortmund arrived in Singapore for the second leg of their Asian tour.
I'm so looking forward to this, because it will be held in Johor on Thursday, and I think it's great to expose the younger generation with international teams, and hopefully it will spur the future of football in this country.
Yep, and at the same time, fans will definitely they recognize most faces in the traveling Dortmund contingent, and which include the Kagawa and then Gudogan. And as well as the World Cup winner and all the other very well-known footballers out there.
Despite the distance between Germany and Asia, the pre-season matches between these two countries is very useful, because the training and games are very important. In fact, they don't have much time to the game, and qualifying for the Europa League is at the end of July. So they have done their best in every training, in every game, to achieve their best level. That's the kind of spirit that we need in our football. So anyway, that's all for our news today. Thank you for listening to us. You can always catch us on our TuneIn app on the go by downloading the Durian ASEAN app. The TuneIn app and search for Durian ASEAN. Or you can listen live on your desktop by going to durianasean.com.
And also, we do have our social channels: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. So you can always leave us your feedback, and the feedbacks are welcome. But stay tuned for the next session, which we'll be talking about, and also the event that's annually going on, Eco Film Festival 2015.